Welcome to the Level 1 Lounge, where we give our uneducated take on anything and everything gaming. Grab your controllers, strap in. We're about to start booting up. So we're going to start off by asking a question. How screwed are you if you woke up in the video game that you last played? I'm going to throw that to Chewy to start off with. So, Chewy, how screwed are you?
So I knew this question was coming up. So I purposely went out of my way, stayed up super late last night to finish AC1, and then booted up Beat Saber because I was like, that's an easy game I could easily survive in. Shut it off just before show. I realized that like when I was early in my Beat Saber days and I was still getting like that weird VR freak out, I once went to scratch my nose at the end of a lightsaber. So I don't think I'd last too long actually.
Whoops.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. How about you, Irish Bandit? How screwed are you?
Well, that depends on my sword proficiency and the ability to use materia.
Or Final Fantasy, hey?
Uh, last game I played was Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, so it's got it's got a little bit of everything in the Final Fantasy VII universe. So I don't know if
But
I
I
could
mean,
use that sword, maybe.
you could live up on the top plate at Midgar and not bother anyone, being one of the sectors that never collapsed. I mean, you could have a pretty comfy life if you think about it.
If I think about it, yeah. But knowing me how I am, I'd probably be living in one of the slums in like Sector 7.
Oh boy. All
Yeah,
right.
no kidding.
How about you, Rock? How screwed are you?
Not too bad as long as I'm in my spaceship there. Do we get the items our characters have, or what's the deal there?
Let's go with no. You're
Okay, yeah,
just
okay.
you in that world.
So yeah, I'm just stuck in that spaceship waiting for somebody to go somewhere with an atmosphere. Gotcha. Also, side note, my wife's dead.
Oh,
Oh no. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I
One
know
play session to another. Got married. Now she's dead. I'm a terrible husband.
dang old circle of life, man.
Yeah.
how about you, Ryder? How screwed are you?
Well, I guess yeah, it depends on where I am in the world. Last I played was today during my lunch hour. I played a little bit of Baldur's Gate. So, if I'm one of the heroes, I'm probably doing pretty good. I'm off saving the world. If I'm just one of the commoners, well, screw my life, I guess.
Yeah, I would definitely be screwed. I actually been playing Red Dead Redemption quite regularly, so I'm gonna die of some sort of disease. That's gonna happen.
Dysentery.
You know,
Isn't there
yeah,
yet?
yeah, TB, something. But yeah, I'm definitely not living past 25, 30, which I'm way past that already. So let's not talk about that part. Um, So we're going to move our news segment here as well. So we're going to jump into some news. Irish Bandit had some information here that he wanted to discuss with us, but I'm going to hand it off to him here in a little bit. Um, so actually, you know what? I'll give that to you now, Irish Bandit. If you want to
Sure.
talk about that, you said MatPat information was going on.
Yeah, this past Tuesday, MatPat, longtime YouTube content creator over a bunch of different channels, including the Game Theorists, Food Theory, uh, Film Theory, Style Theory, GT Live. He announced that after 13 years, on March 9th, he will be doing his last theory. He will be stepping away to spend more time with his wife Stephanie, his son Oliver, and it's a trend I've been noticing a lot recently with a lot of big name YouTube content creators starting to step away after this 10-year mark. But the one that really hit hard for me has been MatPat because I've been such a fan of his all the theories that he's put out on the Game Theory channel. He's done some massive looks at like the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise and everything encompassing that. He's done some great work on games like Poppy Playtime, on Doki Doki Literature Club, on Bendy and the Ink Machine. Just some really good theories that made you just stop and think for a little bit. And then you look at all the other channels he had out. Like he's had some great Star Wars theories on Film Theorist, some really interesting stuff on the food theory, like spatchcocking a turkey, or if you can eat a pine tree, which has been a pretty interesting series. But I would just like to say that, MatPat, thank you for 13 incredible years of all your theories. I know that all the channels in the theory universe are going to continue on. They're going to continue on with different hosts, but I don't know. It's just not going to be the same without MatPat, because we saw somebody. I know this is a game podcast, so talking about YouTube isn't really part of it, but we saw, like, in the past, where someone like Ray William Johnson stepped away from Equals 3, and that went downhill quickly. But I hope that the theorist channels, especially the game theorist channel, going back to video games here, hopefully, I won't say hopefully, it will continue on and will thrive without Matt on screen. But I would just like to say, Matt, thank you for 13 years. You've been incredible inspiration to me on my YouTube journey. Should have warned you guys about this before we started. But yeah, thank you, MatPat. And I, myself, being a huge theorist fan, will always remember your time on the theory channels and look back on them fondly. So,
Yep. Thanks,
Well,
Matt.
thank you for thanks for letting us know and giving your take on that, Irish fan. I appreciate it. And
you bet.
best of luck, MatPat, for all your future endeavors for sure. It's actually a really good segue into the next topic, because since we're kind of talking a little bit about streaming. Twitch kind of lost their licensing. There's been a bunch of controversy and stuff that's been going on within South Korea in regards to streaming. Uh, so I feel that there's kind of a bit of a fallout with that situation. It's been announced that Twitch is looking at laying off more than 500 employees. It was actually announced this morning, and this is going to equal about 35% of its staff. And it's there's a bunch of CEOs and board members that are actually going to be leaving as well. Doug Scott and Laura Lee. There have been some cuts with their parent company, Amazon, as well in the last little while. So there's some, and also, and this was, of course, announced by Dan Clancy this morning. So it's kind of a shame to be seeing that. I'm not really too familiar with the stream community or the Twitch community part of me. I'm starting to get a little bit more involved. I've been streaming myself a little bit more, but I feel that it's basically a fallout with the South Korea situation. And the whole reason they pulled out was because the network fees are just so expensive in South Korea that Twitch just said it's not fair for the people that are streaming to be having to pay for that price to also, to use our services. So it's kind of a shame that that's happening. There's a lot of people that have been losing their job. Like, even Amazon had 18,000 people lose their jobs, and I'm only mentioning it because it's their parent company. But it's unfortunately the way that the world goes. Ryder, I know that you're pretty actively involved in the Twitch community. Do you feel that there might be much of an impact for that here in regards to this?
It's hard to say for sure. As involved as I am with the Twitch community as a content creator, unfortunately, I don't know a lot of the inner workings of what what this is, but I could definitely see this impacting a lot of things like product development. I know that Twitch has been trying to push out a lot of features and basically just have new tools for content creators to use to basically just improve the quality of their content. I also know that I believe there was something that was mentioned about transcoding being moved off of the Twitch platform side those particular tools being handed over to software providers like OBS and whatnot, and giving the content creators more control over their actual transcoding options. So it would make things a little bit more difficult for the creators themselves, because that requires additional hardware resources to do all the transcoding kind of on your own rig. For those with 2 or 3 PC creator setups, really won't touch them at all. But it's hard to say if that's going to affect everybody like myself, who just run off of just the one PC. But yeah, as for service and whatnot, yeah, it's really, really hard to say what's going to happen. But I imagine we'll probably start seeing the impact of these layoffs. I'd say probably not for like at least another 6 months down the road, before the creators themselves start seeing what sorts of things are gonna either be missing or be left behind, that sort of thing.
All right. Well, thanks for your input on that. I appreciate that. I wanted to ask your take because I feel that you and Irish Bandit definitely have your finger on the pulse a little bit more in regards to that community. So
Yeah,
thank
more
you very
so
much.
Ryder, but
I mean, it's the input is valued either way, though, Irish Bandit for sure. So we're going to kind of jump in a little bit more with a bit of an announcement as well in regards to our podcast here for next week. Episode 5 will be a little bit of a different layout. We are not going to be doing our standard podcast. We are going to be reacting to the Xbox Showcase, which was actually announced yesterday for first-party developers. But we will be getting that up a little bit later, and we're going to try doing a blind reaction a little bit later and record that on Thursday next week. I'm personally really excited about this. I'm going to be honest, for the last few years, Chewy can vouch for me on this, but I was a diehard Sony player. I absolutely loved them. And then I kind of sat back and I was watching a lot of these acquisitions that Microsoft was making, and I kind of felt like I was being left out of the loop. And I figured it was time for me not to jump to a different console, but incorporate another console. So I did move. I did also pick up a Series X, and unfortunately, it's gathered a little bit more dust than I would have liked. But now that these games are actually going to be coming out, there's going to be there's going to be some game announcements. I'm expecting there to be a shadow drop of something on Game Pass. I had a talk with one person today, and they were thinking that we might see a shadow drop of Indiana Jones. I just can't personally see that, but that doesn't mean that it's out of the realm of possibilities. But I'm very excited to see what they have up their sleeve and to see what's coming. Uh, what are you expecting to see next week in regards to this showcase?
I'm really expecting nothing, but I have my hopes for Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2. Like, I've been looking forward to that since its announcement. I heard a rumor Sea of Thieves is moving to PlayStation. If that's true and confirmed, I'd like that to be cross-platform so that each platform can play together. Right now, you can, like, PC and Xbox, I believe, can play together, but bring in PlayStation to that. Gear 6, if that's happening, maybe, and a little more focus on some single-player driven, I don't want to say linear, but more. They had Tomb Raider, right?
Yeah, well, yeah,
more of
but they
that.
had a special contract contract at the time with Crystal Dynamics where it was a 1-year exclusive on Xbox for Shadow of the Tomb Raider, I believe is what it was. It was the second game in the Tomb Raider series. Or was it Rise? I think it was Rise of the Tomb Raider, pardon me. But that was actually the first time where I was like, to get an Xbox, because even for that 1 year, I was excited. Irish Bandit, how about yourself? Anything that you're kind of hoping to see?
Not really. If it comes on PC, hey, great. I don't have a PS5 or an Xbox, so I'm straight. I am part of the PC master race.
Yeah, I should have known better.
I mean, it's
Rock, I know
Xbox,
you.
so it's
Yeah,
likely to go to PC.
yeah, that's very true. Rock, I know you also joined me on Xbox a little while after I did as well. So anything you're looking forward to seeing?
Yeah, I'd like to see some more of that Avowed game.
Uh,
Looks kind of neat, and I think that will be coming to Game Pass. So that'll be interesting to check out.
yeah, that one's high on my list as well. I know that they've been doing a little extra work because they didn't want it to seem like it was kind of Oblivion, Skyrim look and feel. They wanted it to be a little bit different, which I believed it was supposed to be out last fall, but it got delayed until sometime this year. But of course, they never really announced when it was supposed to be out. So maybe we'll get a date for that. Um, Ryder, I know that you've got your PlayStation there and you've got your PC, but is there anything that you're kind of hoping that you might get a peek at?
Yeah. Again, PC Master Race and all. But I mean, if something comes up that piques my interest enough, maybe I'll toss a subscription to Xbox Game Pass or something like that. But if I had to pick one particular title that I'd like to see something more about, would have to be Fable.
That would be fantastic. I'm all for that. Um, we've gone over a lot of the ones that I'm really excited for already. Avowed, Fable, the one, of course, that they've confirmed that they're doing, and we're going to see apparently 10 minutes of gameplay on is Indiana Jones. So I'm very excited to see what it's going to be like. I'm wondering if it's going to be first person or third person. In this case, I kind of hope that they do a third person action game when it comes to this particular one. But I mean, we'll see what ends up happening. Either way, this game has been on my watch list since it was announced, and it was also one of the reasons why I got interested in picking up a Series X as well. So I'm excited what's going to end up happening with that. So stay tuned for next week. We'll get the reaction going with that. Anyways, the boot up is complete. Let's get into level 1. So we're going to start today. We're going to discuss memorable bosses or boss-like situations. It's not going to be exclusive to bosses, but just those memorable fights that we've had in video games. So we're going to do it kind of a roundtable style. So I'm going to start off with Chewy, if he would like to discuss his first memorable boss or boss-like fight.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go. It's definitely not a boss, but it's like the climax of what I remember the game. Medal of Honor above and Medal of Honor, Medal of Honor above and beyond. Yeah, you're playing crashes, and what I remember about it is there's so much on fire while you're trying to defend the plane and keep the. I think there's a secret on board you're trying to keep from the enemies. Was that I like had to? It's VR. I had to actually lie down to get cover in my living room. That's what I remember. Like so immersive that I was like lying down behind a rock so I wouldn't die while all my NPCs killed everyone for me. It's great. It's a good time.
That sounds incredible. I got to take you up on the offer to stop by and try some VR. Um, I'm going to take over for my first one here. So I know that Ryder finally had an interaction with this enemy, but the first one on my list is actually the Stranger, who you find out later on in God of War is Boulder. And that fight comes out of nowhere, it seems, in the God of War 2018 version. No, you're just lying in bed, get a knock on the door. Next thing you know, guy comes up and starts beating the hell out of you, trying to pick a fight.
Why didn't he use the
And
gate?
oh, yeah, it was like the way that he healed, and I remember the first time seeing his health bar go back up, I was so furious because what the hell is this? And then it really instills the mechanics of the game a little bit more. But of course, I feel like the first boss fights are always kind of like that. And the destruction and the interaction, taking out trees and punching each other through cliffs, throwing huge boulders at each other, causing earthquakes. It was one of the most intense fights that I've had. So I absolutely love that one. So we're going to move over to Irish Bandit. Which one sticks out for you?
Which one stood out for me? Okay, this one I know for Chewy and Rock's sake, we talk about this game every episode. I know. But for me, top of the list for memorable bosses, Sephiroth. His motivations, his look, just his mannerisms as well, just make him to me one of the most memorable bosses in video game history. He is definitely one of the more well-known bosses, and it's just basically through one action that he does. But like I said, his motivations and his backstory is so compelling as well. Finding out what we find out about him over the course of the pantheon of Final Fantasy VII game or any other media, be it books or anime or Advent Children. So, still, yeah, to me, Sephiroth, hands down, is top of the list for memorable bosses for me.
Well, I mean, can't really say I'm too shocked about that. It
No.
was it was an intense fight and remake for sure. Definitely looking forward to seeing how things pan out though in Rebirth. We'll jump over to Ryder next. A memorable boss fight that you had.
Well, it's for the first one I'd talk about, and I won't go too long into this, is actually many, many memorable boss fights. So rather than talking about them all individually and keeping us here for 6, 7, 8 hours, the probably the most memorable boss fights that I've ever had have all been in Final Fantasy 14. There are so many boss fights in that game, and they're all so incredibly well done to the point that pretty much each individual boss in the game, whether it be at the end of a dungeon, at the end of a trial, at the end of a raid, even through some of the story sequences and whatnot, every boss has its own music, which is absolutely amazing. Part of what makes this whole soundtrack super super incredible. Especially for people that like reliving some of the nostalgia. Like for the Final Fantasy VIII fans, there's one particular 8-man raid where you're quite literally in a boss fight. You're fighting Eden, the GF Eden, and you're fighting it on top of Eden, which makes it even more weird. But
Inception.
Makes sense
yeah,
because Eden is so huge.
yeah. But they brought back the original or I shouldn't say they brought back the original, but they remade the Final Fantasy VIII boss music for that fight in Final Fantasy 14, and it sounds absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, there's so many more boss fights that I could talk about, but yeah, Final Fantasy 14 is definitely on the top of my list for memorable boss fights.
All right. No, I can't say I'm too shocked there. You've sunk a ton of hours into that game for sure. All right, Rock. What about yourself? What stood out for you?
Yeah, I think it goes back to childhood. First time I played this game was at my cousin's place, and being a little kid playing a horror game such as Diablo, it was pretty exciting, pretty memorable, just in and of itself because it's scary as all hell. And you start the game off, you go into this cathedral, and you're killing skeletons. It's kind of slow, but it's creepy. And then you get to this one part of, I think it might even be in like another level, I can't remember, but you end up getting into a room, you open a door, and all of a sudden you hear fresh meat, and you're like, oh god. I think I almost ran away from the computer the first time it happened. I was so freaked out. And it's just been one of those things that has just followed throughout all the Diablos. Like it's been in all the Diablos as well. Not as memorable. This last, like Diablo 4 did a pretty good job of the Butcher. I kind of like what they did because Diablo 3 did like a whole boss fight, which was fun, but it was didn't really give you the sense of the Butcher. But
I
Diablo
still have
4
yet
did
to
it
beat him
right
in
where
Diablo 4. I still have to beat him in Diablo 4. I haven't beaten him yet.
that's good.
He-
That's how a good boss
He
should be,
killed
right?
me every single interaction, like 3 hit. What the hell?
Yeah.
Hashtag skill issue.
Hashtag get good.
No kidding. All right. Well, we'll jump back over to Chewy. What else has stood out for you?
I'm gonna jump to my get good moment, which I did not get good on. The final boss in the remake of Ratchet and Clank, Doctor Nefarious. You end up fighting him in the ship, from what I remember, and I remember going around. I died so many times. The game probably twice told me like, hey, there's a lower level. So I finally was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll go to lower level with the final boss. Back in 3 more deaths. I finally rage quit. I haven't rage quit a game in a long time. That's not even that long ago. I didn't play it when it was first out. I think I played it in like 2020. Kind of an adult and I rage quit a game. I never did finish it. I took it off my system and never downloaded it again.
This was the newest one?
No, not Rift Apart. This is the remake, the
Okay.
2016 Ratchet and Clank.
No, I never finished that one either. So fair enough. Actually, I'll go right to my get good moment then. Ryder is gonna likely experience this one. The Queen Valkyrie in God of War 2018. I know I talked about The Stranger, but the Stranger was the story that got me the quick fight. This one you had to work your butt off to get towards. There are a total of 9 Valkyries, including the Queen, that you got to kill before you get to the Queen. And each one of these Valkyries are equivalent, like I've heard they're equivalent to fighting a Dark Souls boss. Is the way that it is. And it is a slog to get through them in some cases. There's I The fights themselves were tough. You got to the Queen, she incorporates all the attacks from all the other Valkyries that you've come across. So she knows everything that everyone does. And it is the first time I played it, I fought her for about 2 weeks. Great. 3 to 4 hours a day, sometimes 5 to 6 hours. I was just getting creamed. Then I got the same message that Chewy got, which was, "Hey, there's a lower difficulty." And at that point, I said, "Fine." Lowered the difficulty. Within the first 2 to 3 rounds after that, I killed her. Funny thing is, I've gone back. I've understood the gear system a little bit more. I know where the gear is and what to upgrade and what I need for myself to make it work. So that makes that fight a lot easier now. Normally, I may take 2, 3 times, but I'm able to get through it at the regular difficulty now. So I was able to progress, but that was a great fight, and it was definitely a get good moment for me as well. So, anyways, moving on. Irish Bandit.
So if we're talking about get good, I got to put mine in here too. And going back to Final Fantasy VII for this one, Emerald and Ruby weapon. Oh my God, those are pains in the butt because they're got such high HP, especially Emerald weapon, and all the hoops you got to go through to even fight him. Like you have to have a special materia to fight underwater. If you don't, you have a 20-minute time limit to fight him. And then just the fact that he is so friggin' tough, and it is so friggin' tough. I don't know if a giant machine weapon made from the earth has a gender, but you have so many different targets to fight on its shoulders and then the jewel in its midsection. Ooh. Then Ruby weapon is such a pain in the butt to fight too. Going to the desert to fight that, but I'm still working on it. I'm still trying my best to get through everything to even just at least beat Emerald Weapon. But
Yeah, and the thing is, actually, to be honest, one of the this is a little bit of spoilers here. The reason I can kind of understand a little bit, but the what inspired this topic for me when I brought this forward with you guys was I was playing the Final Fantasy 16 DLC, and the one of the fights was the Omega weapon, and that's where it's like, oh, they had these like this boss in all of these other Final Fantasies. So that would be a great topic to bring up. So I'm glad that you brought up the weapons, because that's kind of what really inspired this a little bit as well. All right, Ryder, how about yourself?
Well, I guess I guess we're gonna continue on that theme. It's my turn for my get good moment, and I'd have to go with the original Metal Gear Solid and the fight with Psycho Mantis. This one was something else. This one broke the barriers for mechanics in a boss fight, and I remember fighting this thing for hours and hours and hours on end, until I finally realized that at one point I had to basically kind of pause to give myself a breath, and there was the hint that it gave you to move your controller from port 1 to port 2, and all of a sudden it made that boss fight completely trivial, and I'm like, I wasted hours on this to try and beat it. And like, I tried beating him the hard way, to the point where actually I think at one point I actually got him probably down to like 15% health, when like eventually if you telegraph the moves you can get like one quick shot in, but it only took off like a sliver of health. I managed to actually whittle him down all the way down to about like 15% health, and then he finally killed me. I was like, oh god. So yeah, no, that was definitely my my most memorable get good boss fight.
Try again with the remasters that they brought out now that they've got all the first 3 Metal Gear Solids out and re-released.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how that works.
Yeah, apparently it's just improved graphics. It's basically the same games. I've never experienced them, so I've been kind of contemplating picking that one up.
But how do you change a port on a wireless controller?
that's what I'm thinking.
You have to play it upside down or something.
Grab a second controller, turn that one on, start using that, and play as player
What if you don't
2.
have one?
Yeah.
Well, then
good.
I guess you're stuck. Yeah,
Good,
good. All right, Rock, you're up next. Thanks for getting us started there on Get Good.
Yeah, I'll continue on Get Good. So Margit in Elden Ring. It was actually my first Souls-like game, so I wasn't really familiar with how these games work, and of course it's just punishment. So you kind of like work your way through, and it gives you like kind of the push towards going to this castle, and then you go onto this this bridge. So this bridge is like, it's narrow, right? So you don't have a lot of space to be dodging or running away. And there's this gigantic man that starts attacking you, Margit, and he has this long stick, right? So if you're trying to, like, if you try to dodge, he's still gonna hit you. If you try to like run away, he's still gonna hit you. So it even people that are like longtime Souls gamers struggle with this guy. And I gotta say, like, it took me probably a full day, maybe not a full day, but like a good long gaming session in order to beat this guy. He was tough.
Well, hopefully I get to open up some time to try myself here in the next little while. But I mean, it sounds like you got to the point where you're kind of almost like hoping Let Me Solo her shows up and helps you out with that fight.
Yeah.
All right, back to Chewy. What's another one that stands out there for you?
I think I'll get off the Get Good train here. Give us another topic to talk about. I'm gonna say the uncle in Ghost of Tsushima. Tsushima. Okay, that sounds like Toshiba.
It's silent.
Toyota. Ghost of Toyota. the name itself was the boss I couldn't get over, but the uncle, his battle wasn't really hard. At that point, you have all the stats and stuff, but the choice you have at the end, whether you go full ghost on him or you leave him to live, I'm pretty sure I went full ghost on him. I'm not 100% on that, but that was memorable. That having that choice, that's kind of the first like moral choice in recent gaming memory that I remember having to deal with. But I want to give an honorable mention to Goro's ship, where the game's kind of fatiguing you. I think it's in the second part of the island, and all of a sudden you get to shoot a Hwacha at like boats on the
Yeah,
island. It's like a totally different game mechanic. That was a blast to me.
Literally.
when I got to that part with the uncle, okay. First of all, I replay everything. I get ridiculed for this. I'm sure that we'll have a chance to do a Mavericks Mayhem or something at some point in time where I'll get ripped into for jumping around to different games and replaying games I've already played 1,000 times. But I did make it a point to play Ghost of Tsushima basically twice, almost back to back. And the reason being was because of that. I wanted to see, like, because I let him live the first time around because I thought, Jin, this is the last person that's alive in Jin's family. Like he's going against the grain of everything already, becoming the ghost. So for me, I felt like that wasn't a decision that he would have made to kill his uncle. Then I saw the other side of it where his uncle wanted to die with honor in battle. And that's where I kind of wanted to see both outcomes. And it was I'm interested to see what they're going to lean towards to be what is canon for 2. Or if maybe they go off your save file and oh, you let him live, this is the outcome for this game, or you killed him, this is the outcome for this one. But either way, of course, we don't have a release date or any information. They haven't announced it yet, but we all know Sucker Punch is working on it right now. Let's be honest. So I'll jump over to my next one. So this one, I'm going to switch it up just a little bit here. I I guess it's still kind of on a get good moment. But it's not really a boss, but the King of the Wolves in Witcher 3. And I know that uh, most people here in this podcast haven't really played it. Uh, but this particular fight, it was a contract. He got hired by this guy. His wife was missing, and you start tracking down some evidence, and you find a cabin out in the woods. You find out that there's this basement, and it basically is a giant pen. And you find out that there's actually a werewolf that is living there, and you find the remains of this guy's wife. And you had to eventually you find out you come across this werewolf that killed her and ate her. And at this point, the first time I ever played this fight, I wasn't familiar with oils or the potions to really help me out with the fight. So the thing is, when I was fighting him the first time around, he was regaining his health. So I didn't realize that, oh, I got to have this particular hybrid oil on my blade to prevent him from getting additional health. I need to make sure that I'm taking this potion to help with my strength. And I came in a lot of the times when I got to that, I was like, okay, I know that this mission's there. I'm going to level up 5 or 6 times. So he's at level 12. I'm going to go in at level 17. I'm going to wipe the floor with him, and I'm not going to have to worry about it until I came across and realized how big the oils and potions were in that game. And for me, that changed everything in the game, which is one of the reasons why it's one of my favorites and why I sunk so much time into it was because, and why I keep going back to it is the outcomes are always different. And the preparation in my mind is something that's completely changed for me, and I wasn't familiar with before. So that was my aha moment for that game. So that one really stands out for me. Um, but Irish Bandit, what else do you have for us?
Well, when you gave us this topic of memorable bosses, I didn't know exactly what you meant by it, whether it was memorable final bosses, memorable mini bosses, or like
Right.
memorable bosses that we've heard about. So while I haven't fought this boss myself, I know how memorable he is to the RPG community, that being Kefka from Final Fantasy VI. Everything I've heard about, he just seems like this nihilistic being that just doesn't care and wants to be a god from everything that I've heard about him. And just his look and the laugh of especially, hearing that in like a 16-bit SNES game. That was pretty well done. I gotta admit. So Kefka is definitely one that I would be on the lookout for.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance to play the Pixel remaster for 6, do it.
Oh, I'm going to.
You will grow a very very deep hatred for Kefka.
Maybe that'll be the next one that they remaster. That'd be interesting to see, though, because I feel that there's like I know it's a fan favorite. I've never played it myself, so
I've only
but
played bits and pieces of it, but I really want to play it. I've heard how great Final Fantasy VI is. So
we will definitely be talking more Final Fantasy here in the next month. Of course, we've got Rebirth coming up, so we're going to have a special segment here next month. So keep posted for that. So if make sure you like and subscribe for the information and those videos that will be coming up, as we will be touching base on that here next month. So Ryder, next one for you.
Next one for me. And again, this kind of goes off the branch of it's not really. It's hard to say whether or not you would classify this as a final boss, but it kind of sort of is, and it kind of sort of isn't. But I grew up on playing all the Pokemon games, and probably one of the most memorable series of fights for me was the Elite Four fights. These were present in pretty much every single Pokemon game. You know, you battle your way through the gyms, you battle your way through side quests, and then you finally get to the Champions League, and then you have to go through the gauntlet of the Elite Four, where you don't really get a chance to rest your Pokemon in between. So you really got to manage your resources very very well to go through all these fights. Plus, the music on every single Elite Four fight in every single Pokemon game is nothing short of fantastic. So. Yeah, these fights were always the most exciting, I think, out of all the Pokemon games. Never mind like the final bosses or some of like the one of Pokemon. I think the Elite Four fights were the top of the food chain there.
Yeah, don't want to forget your revives and your potions.
I did play red and blue growing up, and I remember that my sister had yellow, so I did borrow that at one point. But those were the only ones that I've been familiar with in the past. So, all right, Rock, how about yourself? Next memorable boss fight or boss like?
Well, it sounds like we kind of got like a potions theme going this round because you're talking about your blade potions, and then we're talking about reviving and healing up Pokemon. So mine's gonna be Duriel in Diablo 2. The dang poisons. Oh, he just poisons you, and you're like, I gotta heal. I gotta put an antidote on. And if you're running like a glass cannon build, like you're a sorceress or something, you basically gotta have what's it called? The guy mercenary. You have to have a mercenary that's able to tank him, because otherwise you'll just die because he freezes you, so you're slow, so you can't get away from him, and he's poisoning you. So you got to learn how to um, macro your potions to your mercenary. So you're giving him an antidote, you're giving him a potion, and then sometimes they just die because you run out of potions. So you got to run back to town. You got to revive your mercenary, go back into the fight. So it was pretty frustrating at times. I mean, if you're running a paladin, you can run like an aura to get away from the poison, which isn't bad. The tankier builds wasn't so bad, but if even then, a lot of times you're just like potion.
Almost sounds like another get good situation though too, kind of tied up with the whole potions theme though as well.
Yeah.
Chewy, your next pick.
I guess I'll sort of stick with the potions, moving it more to crafting. I'm gonna go with The Last of Us. First time I played it was remastered on the PlayStation 4. I'm gonna go with the first bloater on there. I remember just
Oh man, that was such a bad fight.
you get into that school gym, and you gotta like run
Yeah.
around. I didn't understand crafting. Like I had played Division with you, and that was about it. So you lent it to me. I'm running around. I can't kill this guy. I keep shooting him. He keeps as soon as he touches you, he rips you apart. And you're like, "Well, have you crafted any Molotovs?" Like, what is that? I remember you showing me that like fire is his weakness, so I craft a bunch of those before going in, and or right at the start, I guess, because you start in the gym, and I think 3 of those takes him out on easy. Pretty sure. Just gotta hit him. So, and I remember my big sigh of relief when I finally got. I think we were on chat too, and I just went, and you're
Yeah.
like, "You finally got him, right?" And I was like, "I sure did."
No, I remember you actually, kind of unrelated, but I remember having that same reaction with one fight in Horizon. You're like, that was the same noise that I made in The Last of Us. We talked about that too at that point.
Yeah,
But
that was
yeah,
a glitch in Horizon. That wasn't a boss. It was loading me incorrectly, and when it finally loaded me correctly, I had figured out how to.
I think I was fighting my first Sawtooth the same time that you were fighting a
It was a
bloater,
turtle.
and that's
Like
where,
it was the hunting grounds that I was doing.
yeah. Um, so the one that I'm gonna bring up next isn't necessarily a boss. I feel that it's going to be kind of on the same premise as the preparation still as well. Uh, but the Sawmill Horde from Days Gone. Um, uh, Chewy, I know, played the game as well, and I remember having a conversation with him. You just skipped that interaction at that one point, right?
Yeah, I think instead of that game giving you a hey, there's a lower level, and I was probably on the lowest level to begin with. It's like you could just skip this interaction. I don't know if I skipped that one. I definitely skipped the motorcycle chase.
Okay. Well, the Sawmill Horde. Now, the thing is, keep in mind most hordes in this game, you're looking at 150-ish infected, and call them freakers in this game. This one had 700 freakers to take out at one time,
Damn.
minimum. Um, and the thing is, the preparation came in because if throughout the course of the game, if you hit all of these checkpoints and hideouts that all your enemies are at, you take them out, you actually get upgrades. You get the ability to craft pipe bombs. Uh, you'll have in better weapons, all of that, like military style machine guns and assault rifles. So I went in with that, and they also came with. At one point in that game as well, you actually worked with a chemist, and he created a napalm Molotov. So in order to create that, though, that part was coming up, and I knew it was coming up. I went through all these Nero checkpoints. That's where you get all your health upgrades, your stamina upgrades, your focus upgrades, all of that, and all the material actually respawns. I went to every single one of them, got every piece of crafting material I can, crafted as many Molotovs as I can, as many pipe bombs as I could, and napalm Molotovs as well. And then, of course, you have your traps, you have remote mines, you have proximity mines, and all of that. So I figured out a path. the best way to do is you figure out a path and what direction you're going to run. Fill that area up with traps. Of course, realize what areas you need to avoid, and in the meantime, make sure you're fully stocked on all of your ammo and your Molotov cocktails and napalm. I started off by just lobbing attractors into a certain area and have them all hone in on this attractor. You throw a couple Molotov cocktails at them or napalm Molotovs. They take out, 20, 30 at a time, but they always spot me right off the jump. So hiding never works. But that is actually one of the reasons why I keep going back to that game over and over and over and over again, is because I have so much fun fighting that horde that it's worth me taking the time to go back into it and taking them on fully stocked. And I absolutely love that fight.
I think you need to learn what a save file is, so you don't have to replay the whole game.
Sure. But I mean the game, I don't know, it's just so heartfelt, and it's just one of my games of like I don't know what to play. My backlog is just not interesting to me right now. The idea of jumping on the back of a motorcycle and cruising around, and I know I'm going to have to chip in for the charity for this, but when you're cruising around in the that's where you end up having that's where you end up having certain that's where I just enjoy it. Just riding out there, having fun, coming across random hordes, different interactions.
As a real
Oh,
motorcyclist,
stress relief.
I get it.
Yeah. Makes me want to get a bike even more.
You should.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk. All right. Irish Bandit.
So I'm going retro old school for this one. One of the first bosses that I remember, and to this day, still witty, still entertaining, still mean. Bowser from the Super Mario series. Oh, what a memorable bad guy he is, especially in all his iterations that have come since the very first Super Mario game. Love him. I think he can be witty, he can be dumb, he can be funny. Take a look at the Super Mario Brothers movie that just came out. Not the live action one. We don't talk about that one, but the one with Jack Black voicing Bowser. I think Bowser's a wonderful boss in any of the Super Mario games.
It's been a minute since I've played, but yeah, I could definitely see that. I know Rock has spent a lot of time playing those games too in the past, so
Yeah, it wouldn't be a boss fight talk without talking about Bowser for sure.
all right, we'll move on to Ryder. What's your next one that you would like to discuss?
Well, if we're going to be kicking it back to the old school, then we gotta stick with the old school. And if you're going to talk about Bowser as a memorable boss, you got to talk about Legend of Zelda and Ganondorf as a memorable boss. And same thing, all the iterations, right from the original Legends of Zelda all the way up to the new ones. Now, I haven't played the two most recent ones on Switch, but probably my most memorable fight was probably Wind Waker. I think was the last Zelda that I played. And yeah, the fight with Ganondorf on that one was was super well done. And if I remember correctly, it was another one of those phasic fights too, where you beat Ganondorf once, you think you got him, then he kind of gets back up, you see his health bar refill, and you go, oh crap, here we go. And yeah, you basically got to beat him like 2 or 3 times before before he finally stays down. So yeah, so if we're going old school, I think Ganondorf needs to be right up there with Bowser as well.
Agreed.
All right, Rock, do you have anything old school, or what's your next one that really jumps out?
Well, I mean, kind of old school would be Master Hand. Um, so if you've ever played Super Smash Brothers, I think the first one was called Melee, right? Yeah.
Yes.
The boss in that was Master Hand, and it's just like he wasn't. I mean, of course, he's hard if you turn on hard difficulty. He wasn't necessarily hard, and his mechanics weren't like too difficult to figure out. It's just stuck out to me as like an interesting concept of a boss of just his hand. that like tries to kick your butt. And I think I didn't play Brawl. I did play Ultimate, and I believe it continued on. I think there was like a Crazy Hand, and I think for Ultimate there was like an army of Master Hands controlled by this like Galeem. I never did finish the game, but I knew there was an army of Master Hands, which is pretty cool.
I do remember Master Hand and Melee. I think we spent a lot of time playing that on my GameCube back in the day for sure. All right. Well, we will jump back over to Chewy. What else is jumping out at you?
I guess if we're going old school, I am out of my choices. I'll pick my oldest game, which is Moss Book 1 for VR. Again, it's not the boss was like this crab. The boss battle is not really the like memorable part. It's the interaction that you're having with your character. You control the Moss, and you're in the game. So as you're controlling the mouse, you're also reaching in to like charge swords or re-health or hold the crab down while you peg on it. But all that is nothing in comparison to when you finally get to the battle. The mouse turns around and you physically high five in the game, and then they do a little dance. Like it's just amazing that reaction, that like you bond right there. You're like, I want to play book 2 because of that memory.
Interesting. All right. Well, we'll stay kind of on that topic then as well for old school. I do feel that we've touched base a lot on Final Fantasy, but I'm going to take us there one more time. So my first Final Fantasy game I ever played was Final Fantasy VIII, and the one fight that really jumps out at me that I remember was Bahamut. And the reason why I remember that one and why it was so annoying was, and I had the official PlayStation magazine walkthrough to help me out with this one because there was no way that I was ever going to be able to get it, because there's one point in time where you walk up to Bahamut and he's looking for a response, and the right answer is nothing. You don't say anything at all, and it's selectable, but you can't really tell that there's actually content there to actually select to spark that fight with him. The other two answers just sparked another fight with like a ruby dragon or something, which was always a pain in the ass to fight. But once you said nothing, then he fought you. Um, but I'm going to tie it to something a little bit more recent, because the next interaction that I had with him that really jumps out, of course, is in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I will argue up and down that he is the hardest boss in that fight. Sephiroth, sure, yes, he's absolutely difficult. Bahamut,
10 times worse.
oh yeah, it was so bad fighting him, especially during the Pride and Joy fights. He was
That's
the
the one.
biggest
Yeah.
pain. Yep. Because not just because because you're not just fighting him. You knock him down about what? He's got about a quarter or so of his health left. He summons
Yeah.
Ifrit, and Ifrit is fast and on you, and he's just a pain. It's a pain to take down. Um, so I would absolutely argue that Bahamut is one of the hardest bosses I've ever come across in any of the Final Fantasy games. Uh, Absolutely love having him on my side after those fights. It makes the world of difference. Uh, I did make a point though in Final Fantasy VIII to take out on Cactar first, because that's where I really started being able to stock up on Meltdown to be able to do more damage to Bahamut, and make that fight a little bit easier. So that one really stands out in my mind. How about you there, Irish Bandit?
Well, keeping with PlayStation 1, I talked about this game on my list for remakes, remasters, whatever. I think Mitochondrial Eve from Parasite Eve is pretty memorable in her own right. You take her on a few times during the length of the game, but this version of her was just so much tougher, and her look and design was just gnarly looking when she has the full mitochondrial makeover. Because when you first fight her, she's just in her human form. She's got these wicked powers. But then when she levels up, we'll just say for lack of a better term, and her full mitochondrial powers are being developed, she just looks so nasty, so mean. And then you fight her one more time while she's pregnant. Yeah, okay. But
Yeah, I
the
remember
the
that.
the mitochondrial, the second version for me was way memorable. One of the most memorable bosses of that game.
All right. You know, I actually kind of hope they do make a remake for that because
So do I.
it's yeah, it'd be really interesting to see how they would do that fight now, even as well. All right. Well, we'll move over to Ryder. What else would you like to discuss for memorable boss fight or boss like moments?
I would have to say I'm going to go back to like a game that was actually remastered, not so much recently, but Modern Warfare 2. The original Modern Warfare 2, I should say, not the current version that was released last year, but the 2009 version. Probably the most memorable fight was the very last one, where you and Price are hunting down General Shepard. Everybody knows, or anybody that's played through a lot of the COD series knows about that particular scene when when General Shepard kills Ghost and kills I can't remember who else was in that particular squad at the estate. But yeah, when he kind of kills you and he kills Ghost and throws you into a pit, lights you on fire, and then walks off. So it's down to Soap and Price to hunt him down at the very end. Yeah, that was probably one of the most memorable boss fights where, General Shepard comes out of the dust, whatever, stabs you in the chest with a combat knife. You're laying on the ground bleeding out. Price is trying to fight him. General Shepard gets the upper hand. And then the final sequence where you have to literally pull the combat knife out of your chest, mashing a button. You can see the hand shaking as you pull it out, and then to flip it around and then throw it and score a bullseye right between Shepard's eyes. That was a great scene. That was a fantastic fight, if you really want to
There,
call it one.
that is some nostalgia coming back over me.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was a great scene.
I think that was actually one of the first Call of Duties I ever played was Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah. And actually, kind of fun fact about that Modern Warfare now. So, the voice actor that voiced Overlord in the original Modern Warfare 2 is actually the new voice of General Shepard now in the Modern Warfare series.
Interesting. I still have yet to pick up the new one, but I'm kind of a single player fan, so
Well, if you got a half an hour to spare.
Yeah. All right. Activision, it was a joke. It was a joke. It was a joke.
Don't be mad.
Don't Chris judge us. All right. So Rock, you got a few more here.
Yes. So, what better boss to fight than a literal god, right? So, going back to God of War, I guess it would be 2 and 3, where
Yes.
you're facing off against Zeus. Pretty cool. I mean, I can't remember a lot of the mechanics. It was a long time ago. I think
Yeah.
God of War 2 was 2005 and 3 was 2010. So it was a long time ago.
Okay, yeah.
But I just remember wanting to kill him so bad because he's such a jerk.
Yeah.
Good reason.
And
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, I do remember those fights. Of course, because they were again on the top of my list of my favorite games on PlayStation 1 and 2 era. But yeah, I can definitely see that. And like because you were so close to beating him in 2. Like he was just about to die, and then Athena steps in the way. Why did you do that? But yeah, I 3 was a fantastic one as well.
Mhm.
I don't want to give too much away here because I know that Chewy has been working through them, and I really don't want to wreck any more than that for that. But no, I am in full agreement with that. That was both of those fights were fantastic. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I got excited there too.
No, I
Did you
figured
want
you
to
would.
add a little bit more? Yeah.
No, that's great. That's great. You did great.
All right. Well, we got one more each here. So, Chewy, what's your last pick?
So I guess I'm gonna bring it new school. Miranda's Battle in Village, Resident Evil Village. It's kind of one of the bosses I remember figuring out her timing, when to wait, where I had to dodge because she takes your vision away. I really like the arena. You're in that like black mold. You're
Moss.
stuck in the
Yeah,
arena.
moss
Yeah,
mold. Yeah.
moss mold. Yeah. And then, as you know, you get the shotgun around then, or that's when I bought the shotgun, or I had the shotgun, and I just got to use the shotgun a lot, which, as you know, and can attest to, is near and dear to my heart from the Halo days.
Yeah.
So,
Halo 2. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that I think you probably figured it out quicker than I did. Because that fight, I remember it taking me a good chunk of time. Um, the getting surrounded by that darkness and not seeing slaughtered me every time. It was so infuriating at that point. So you definitely more than likely figured out that timing way quicker than I did. Um, so I have one more here as well, and this one is kind of horrible. It's a Heim from The Witcher 3, and I'm not expecting anyone to know this one. But this guy, the storyline is this guy was hearing voices, and he was being told by he thought by his ancient ancestors to start mutilating himself. At one point in time, he took out his own eye, and it got progressively worse. That he felt that he deserved this, and what it ended up turning out to be was a Heim that was attached to him. So it was a demon or a really evil spirit. And one of the only ways, I can't remember the way that I did it the first time around and drawing it out and actually fighting it. But the other way of getting it to detach from this guy wasn't an actual fight, was to trick it. But the thing is, in order to trick it, the person that it would latch onto would have to be tricked as well. So it was kind of weird. So you play as Geralt. There's a suggestion that somebody has to trick you without, of course, you can't tell you on how you're being tricked. So she keeps it quiet. So the way she does it is she kidnaps the son as this infant from the guy that's mutilating himself, and she gives you the baby and says, "Throw it in the oven." And basically, in order you take the baby and you look at the guy, you're thinking like, give it back, or you can trust this girl who's just like, throw this kid into an oven. So of course, the first time around, I was like, "There's no bloody way I'm throwing this infant in the oven." Second time around, I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing this." Throw the kid in the oven, but what you didn't realize was she's actually standing on the other side of the oven. So she takes it out before the baby actually starts cooking. So the Heim latches onto Geralt, realizes this kid's still alive, and then takes off. So it tricks Geralt in this. But it was such a horrible way. I know I'm laughing about it now, but it was so horrible to be like, yeah, throw a baby into an oven. It was awful, but it was fine, and it was one of the worst things I've ever done in a video game, to be completely honest. But it was it was an interesting boss like moment. So I couldn't resist bringing that one up. But yeah, so if you guys ever do pick up that one, throw the kid in the oven. It'll be fine.
You heard it here first,
All right.
people. Throw the kid in the oven.
Disclosure, don't throw your
Disclaimer.
kids in the oven. This was in a game. We don't condone that. All right, Irish Bandit.
For my last pick, we're sticking with PS1 Lynx from Chrono Cross, simply for the fact of this mid-game twist where Lynx and the protagonist of the game, Surge, switch bodies. So for the rest of the game, you're playing as Surge in Link's body, and then you have to fight Surge. No, you have to fight Lynx in Surge's body. It sounds confusing, but it was hella fun, and I loved it, and I loved Chrono Cross as well. So yeah, Lynx, great villain overall too.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing, Ryder.
All right. Well, for my last one, one of my favorite first-person shooters was Borderlands. So we're gonna go into Borderlands 2, which I think had the most memorable boss, which was at the end. And just as a side bonus, this is also Canadian content. Handsome Jack as one of the most memorable bosses. And I say Canadian content because Damien Clark is the gentleman that voiced Handsome Jack, and he's from Mississauga, Ontario. So for those of you who are playing the home game, yes, Handsome Jack is Canadian. But yeah, one of the most hilarious characters as an antagonist to ever come out in a game. A lot of his one-liners, a lot of his interactions with you were so funny. Plus, he also invented butt stallions. So I mean, there there is that. I know Chewie's kind of giving that look, going, "Okay, what the heck is going on?" Seriously, play the game. You'll find out what butt stallion is, and you will absolutely laugh your butt off. You'll laugh your butt stallion off. That's. But I think probably one of the biggest turns on that one. Yeah, there you go. One of the biggest turns that game threw at you is when you're forced to kill his daughter, and you basically have to kill his daughter in front of him in order to prevent him from basically obtaining the key to the vault. The instant that happens, you can hear the switch in his voice turn on, where he goes from sadistic hilarious villain and just gets rid of the hilarious part and just goes completely sadistic on you. He goes so evil, and the things that he does throughout the game to try and get back at you are pretty vile. But yeah, I would have to say Handsome Jack from Borderlands 2 is probably one of the most memorable villains out there.
Keep getting told to try that one. I think it's got to go on my list. All right, Rock, your last one.
Last one is King Dedede from Kirby. Weird looking frog type dude, kind of chubby looking, kind of like Kirby, I guess. And also has the ability to like suck you up and spit you out. In the first couple games I played, he was straight up like a bad guy, I'm pretty sure. And then in Kirby's Adventure, which is the third one, like the one on Nintendo. No, Dreamland. Kirby's Dreamland. He's actually in like a kind of like a hero role because he's trying to stop you from returning the Star Wand. And once you return the Star Wand, he's like begging you not to go because you already kicked his butt. He's begging you not to go, and then you finally put the Star Wand on there, and it like the big bad in that game comes out because he's like looking for the Star Wand. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure what happens in the future games of Kirby, if he's still a bad guy or a good guy or what, but I do remember him being pretty memorable as a kid. So
I don't think I ever played that part with you, but that sounds like it would have been a lot of fun. So even to play him as a hero as well. All right. Well, we've done our top 6. it's kind of an odd one, or odd number for this, but top 6 favorite boss-like moments. So we're going to start hitting the power button and shut this on down. But tune in for next week with our next reaction to the Xbox showcase. And make sure you hit that like and subscribe. And thanks for tuning in to the Level One Lounge.